And with that familiar theme song, it's time to go out to the left coast of America and talk to our Culture Blast reporter, Michael Snyder. Hi, Michael.
Hi, Alex, and hi, listeners, and happy to be here and ready to roll with some new movie reviews, etc. Shall we get cooking?
Absolutely, do that.
Okay, well, this is a shocker. I'm continuing to enjoy the Fast and the Furious franchise after some missteps, and the latest, The Fate of the Furious, or 8, that's right, it's the 8th installment in the franchise, is a ball of fun. And in fact, well, the villainess is an Oscar winner. Charlize Theron, or Theron, depending upon how you want to pronounce her name, is almost to the level of Bond villain in The Fate of the Furious. And she is integral in kicking the plot into motion as sort of patriarch of the Fast and Furious auto driving racing daredevil family. Dom, played as ever by your friend and mine, let's not get ridiculous, Vin Diesel. He's lured to the dark side because Cypher, this villainess, has something on him. So she's going to make him betray his friends, and everything he knows is good and decent because he lives by a code. So most everybody is back in this thing, including Dwayne Johnson as the super cop who has become connected to these guys as their adventures have gone more international. He's back as Hobbs. Let's see, Michelle Rodriguez is back as Letty, who is Dom's sweetheart. And shockingly enough, Vin Diesel and Michelle Rodriguez kiss and make out and roll around in bed in this thing, and it really kind of hypes up the reality because you never see Vin Diesel, actually getting too romantic on the big screen. But in any event, Tyrese Gibson is back, Ludacris is back, the whole crew, and there are also a few surprise additions, such as Helen Mirren and the return of a nemesis, and the one guy that Dom would not have anything to do with. That's right, it's the character played by that mad lunatic. You love him, you know him. It's Jason Statham, and this guy is just fantastic in this movie. And the movie is ridiculous. It's flat out ridiculous. Oh, by the way, Paul Walker as Brian O'Connor and Jordana Brewster as Mia, not on board this time. Of course, Paul Walker is dead in real life, but that doesn't mean that his ghost, so to speak, isn't hanging over the proceedings, and we don't really know of his fate, but that's involved here. The movie's directed by F. Gary Gray, who directed Straight Outta Compton, so this is a guy with a good track record so far, particularly in terms of dealing with multicultural projects, and he doesn't fail us here. I have to say, let's be honest about it, it's a cartoon. It's out of control, it's silly, it's unbelievable, but it's fun. And the idea of family looms over this thing as you go from ridiculous explosive set piece to ridiculous explosive set piece. Anyway, it's the ultimate in bargain matinees, and that's the best thing I can say about it. Okay, moving on. The Lost City of Z is a true-life drama that centers on the British explorer Colonel Percival Fawcett. This is a guy who got wrapped up in the pursuit of a secret city in the Amazon back in the 1920s, and he went out to find whether or not this culture and civilization could be unearthed, and what riches and what wonderful relics and antiques he could come back with to prove the existence of this magical city. And of course, he disappeared for a while here and there, and it's based on a nonfiction bestseller, The Lost City of Z, by an author named David Gran, and it was fascinating and exciting and engaging and tense, and I bought in. Charlie Hunnam plays Percy in this thing, and he's kind of unrecognizable. Tom Holland, soon to be Peter Parker in the new Spider-Man film, plays his son. Robert Pattinson is on board here as his best buddy and the guy who's going to go to the ends of the earth with him. Sienna Miller, almost unrecognizable, brunette and sort of mousy, is his wife. And man, they went into the jungles and they shot this baby. Angus McFadden is on this thing from Ripper Street. It's a really wonderful and adventuresome exploration. That's all I can
Well,
tell you.
let me then warn people about this film,
Okay.
because I just got out of the theater from seeing it.
Okay.
It sucks. It is so boring. I couldn't believe it that an action film could actually be this boring.
I was absolutely riveted by it. That's
Riveted,
so amazing.
riveted by what? An overlong picture with scenes that don't move the whole thing forward. I mean, come on.
The whole thing is forward motion. I was fascinated by it.
He goes back to England, and then he's problems with the wife, and then the war, and then everything could have been. This thing, somebody should have taken a hatchet to this script and made it a little more literate.
The writer-director James Gray is quite literate, and he did a beautiful job in rendering the story.
I think this was literally the most boring 2 hours and 15 minutes I've spent in the theater in years.
I find that hard to believe, but we'll move on to Norman, the moderate rise and tragic fall of a New York fixer. This is a frankly fantastic movie about, although I don't know what Alex is going to think about it, about the weird labyrinth of international politics, finance, and various interest groups that exist and are revealed when a prototypical scam artist, a very canny, scrambling, self-serving New York Jew named Norman, immerses himself in it. Norman is played to a T by Richard Gere in one of the great performances of his career to date. I mean, he's been doing top-notch work since entering middle age, but this is definitely another high point. And the question is, when did pretty boy Richard Gere, star of Pretty Woman, turn into schlubby old Eli Wallach? I mean, this guy made me think of Eli Wallach. Time is such a rascal. Anyway, this operator, Norman, is in constant survival mode and needs to appear better off than he is. And he's good at that. So good that he gets embroiled in the highest level of Israeli politics, and things take off from there. By the way, written and directed by Joseph Snyder in expert fashion, and man, the supporting cast is superb, including, among others, Michael Sheen, Charlotte Gainsbourg, Steve Buscemi, Dan I'm Everywhere Stevens, Hank Azaria, and Josh Charles. There isn't a false note in this thing. And again, well, Alex's mileage may vary, but I really, truly was impressed with Norman, the creation and the film. Tommy's Honor is another docudrama, and it's the work of Jason Connery, son of Sean Connery, and he may be best known as an actor for his run as Robin Hood in the UK television series Robin Hood back in the 80s, or a stint on the ABC soap opera General Hospital, but he, like his father, is a Scotsman through and through, and thus it makes sense that he has directed a scenic and enlightening movie about the father and son who were at the heart and significant to the development and growth of Scotland's beloved game of golf. Again, Alex might be bored. Golf, it's a boring game. This is not a boring movie. So the father and son, Tom and Tommy Morris, are played by the great Peter Mullen, he's the elder, and Jack Lowden, who has been in a few things like Denial in 71, which you may or may not have seen, and they're pretty wonderful. Their dynamic is wonderful. It's basically their tale, and the father was basically a glorified caddy and a guy who made golf balls and built clubs and ran the greens and basically designed some of the early golf courses in Scotland. The kid goes on to become the most decorated champion in the Scottish Open's history, starting in, I think, the 1860, right around there. It is fascinating stuff. Sam Neill plays the guy in charge of St. Andrews. Rich people looked down on these two guys because they were working class, but, you know, they were champions, particularly young Tommy. It's a tragic tale in places. Ophelia Lovibond is she's the love interest in this thing. Meg, who ends up marrying Tommy. It's solid stuff, and Jason Connery does a great job, but obviously this was a passion project. I thought Tommy's Honor was quite good. Solid work all the way around. Let's wrap things up with A Quiet Passion. Clever and sometimes teary and sometimes whimsical. The poetry of Emily Dickinson is with us and really familiar today over a century after it was written. I mean, this movie is a beautiful, gentle, and tender biopic about Emily Dickinson, She was a genius. She was filled with pride and self-loathing and a certain confidence and creativity, but she was what was called a plain Jane. And over time, Emily Dickinson, in her real story and in this movie, becomes a willful shut-in, and she's kind of dealing with doubt and yearning and undermined by health issues, but still totally eloquent with pen to paper, and she had like a sharp, lacerating wit that she wasn't afraid to turn on herself and her own perceived lack of beauty. She had to deal with a woman's second-class place in the society of the time, the dictates of organized religion, and Cynthia Nixon of Sex and the City nails it as Emily Dickinson. She was a brilliant woman in a repressive era, and all of this is on display. It's America in the 19th century. It's New England. She was surrounded by loving parents, by the way, and Dad is played by Keith Carradine here. She had a devoted and far more social and optimistic sister, Vinnie, I guess short for Lavinia, played by Jennifer L., and a staunch brother named Austin, but she struggled with thwarted feelings and a kind of a preordained place in society. Anyway, this is the work of British writer-director Terence Davies, known for very lovely, stately, meditative dramas, which Alex might find boring, but I'm inspired by. And some of these were inspired by Davies' life in the UK in the 20th century, but I've got to say, this is a wonderful take on a biopic, very affecting, shot, by the way, in Dickinson's native Massachusetts as well as Belgium. And Cynthia Nixon hopefully will be remembered around Oscar time for this bravura performance. That's it in terms of new films. What are you doing? What do you got other than
well,
your
it shouldn't matter.
anger?
It shouldn't matter to you because you seem to be so dismissive of any opinion I have. Because you have so much great taste that everything you say can't be countered.
No. I totally embrace an opposing opinion.
No, you don't, because you've spent every movie review on this show putting me down.
I did not spend every one. I said Norman was...
Every single one. I counted it.
Not true. I think you're going to love Norman, by the way, because it's set in New York.
I'll wait till it comes to TV. But
ow. Okay, you know what? It's going to play well at home. It will.
Yeah.
Anything. What are you watching other than
probably really a great show. Just a great on Amazon. American Playboy, the Hugh Hefner story.
Really?
Is amazing. It is just absolutely amazing. It is riveting. It's the history of America socially in the last 50 years, and it's just amazing. It's an amazing work.
Not a drama or a dramatization.
It is a part dramatization, part documentary. In other words, they mix the documentary footage and then fill in the gaps with actors playing the various people. It's very skillfully done, and it is just riveting.
Who plays Hef?
I don't know. I never saw the guy before in my life. But he
it's probably a positive that you didn't recognize him from anyplace else.
It probably is. But anyway, it was amazing. It's an amazing show. And I also recommend, it's in its final episode now over Country Music Television, Sun Records.
Wow. Tell me more about this.
Directed by Roland Joffe, most of the episodes. And it's really, it's just a lot of fun. You know, it's the whole history of Sun Records. You know, and it finished its first season, and it finished with Elvis leaving Sun. Okay, but all these other people are walking in the door, like Carl Perkins and Jerry Lee Lewis and Johnny Cash. So
it's going to continue. It's the Sam Phillips story, essentially.
Basically, I mean, it's got to continue. It's too good, and country. It's perfectly suited as a series for country music television. So catch the last episode if you can, but also if you can lay your hands on the rest of the series. Do that, because it's just well worth the while. Anyway.
These are words I'd never hear from you. Hey, watch something on the Country Music Channel.
Yeah. Anyway, so tell them where they can find you.
I'm on Twitter at Culture Blaster and on Facebook at Michael Snyder's Culture Blast page. Check into it, and we'll be back next week, I hope.
Okay, and stay tuned for more GABNet coming right up.